Where do we jump in? Where are you thinking? Where do we jump in on this?
So I think the starting point for me when talking about change is that all change is hard.
Right.
It's just hard. Now, there's changes that are bad and changes that are good objectively. There's a scale of that, but that's not how people experience it. When we've developed a culture or the way we do things around here, and we're making little tiny incremental changes inside of that, that's not what we're talking about.
Right.
But when we're making the kind of change that goes outside of our culture, outside of our norms, of what we're familiar with, those are the kind of changes that you just have to know as a leader. You and your team and all those you lead are going to experience it as hard because it's kind of a threat, or it could be a threat. That's the question. Is this a threat or not? Change is just hard. And I think it's worthwhile just sitting in that for a minute and realizing a lot of what makes change hard is it's loaded with conflict. It's loaded with multiple perspectives and multiple opinions. And when you're trying to make a ton of decisions about how to do a thing and where to go and get this whole team oriented in a new direction, it has a tendency to be a high conflict environment. I don't mean bad conflict. I just mean we don't all agree. Being able to consistently, over a long period of time, continue to engage and resolve conflict after conflict as you navigate through this process is actually really heavy lifting. Mm-hmm. Because what you're doing is you can't personally make all the decisions. It's an ecosystem that's going to do that. And so I always think of this as the process of you're holding tension. And if you squeeze too tight on it, there's a violence involved. It's too much pressure. But if you just let it go, it's like you're just abdicating. I don't know. What do you want to do? It's not a great leadership question. But finding a way to hold tension and keep the tension focused on each other so it can resolve. And then the next one, and just consistently holding this tension as you navigate through. I think that requires incredible strength of character. It requires insight. It requires you to be able to see the tensions and then figure them out, release them in certain ways. And again, watching masters do this is just it's extraordinary.
I think the leaders who are leading the best in our day have a sense of they're out in the front and they're trying to look way out and see what might be coming as best as possible, at least the current and the wind. And sometimes they actually will, like we said earlier, happen to change. They will make change happen. But that's a different path that we're not really talking about here. We're talking about when change comes, knocks on your door, doesn't always have, a 7-day or a 3-month advance notice of an appointment on your calendar.
Yeah. How
do we create an environment as leaders to allow that to happen as healthy as possible? I think one way is we have to lead different.
Yeah.
Well, what are some other ways? You're thinking about this environment for the best possible outcome of change.
Yeah.
What can we do as leaders?
I think, so change always activates, I'm going to say, change always activates fear. The fear is there to help focus us because we're moving from something we know into something we don't know, and that is kind of scary. A lot of times we use fear and anxiety interchangeably.
Sure.
And that's fair, but I think differentiating between the two is helpful. To have fear about something is to recognize this might be dangerous, but and therefore I will engage it as though it's dangerous. And that's fine. That's a useful fear. And you can know what to do with that fear. Anxiety is, my favorite definition comes from Seth Godin. He said this one day in a podcast, and I really hooked into it. He said, anxiety is pre-living failure. It's recognizing it could be dangerous and then assuming the danger will be activated and assuming as a result of that we will fail and then pre-living that experience. And that can be maybe even helpful to be able to imagine that. But if you can pre-live failure, but you cannot pre-live success, it's not helpful. So when we're helping our teams navigate change, when we're leading teams, it's okay to have them in a state of fear. It's okay to be in a state of fear. But if you push change to the point of anxiety, or if you have a team that can't know the difference, it's hard. It's hard to navigate. And you'll watch some really bad behaviors emerge, and you'll watch people start to defend territory for survival's sake. And when people are defending for survival, they'll fight to the death.
Right. And so much of that I found is really set first by the tone of the leader or the senior leadership. And it's taking a posture that says, I'm not going to try to control this.
Yes.
but actually we're going to hold it open-handedly, but have the honest conversations to go, hey, like when I hear a leader say, listen, I've never been down this road before, but here's what I'm going to promise you. I'm going to be with you every step of the way, and we're going to get through this. We're going to come out on the other side, and we're going to find a way. That to me is a level of leadership that people will rally around, because they're not expecting you to know it all and have it figured out. They know you've probably never been there. And if you say you have and have it all figured out, they just know you're blowing smoke anyway. And that actually works against the credibility you're trying to build. But in these moments, you just got to be honest, face it, and go, hey guys, we've never been through a pandemic before. I don't know how to lead through this, but here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm not going anywhere. And I know there's a route through this, and we're going to navigate it, and we're going to get through the other side. And my hope is that you join me and we get through this together. Man, that forges a type of morale and a sense of a rally cry that maybe gets you further than you even thought on the other side, because now people, they want to be a part of that.
But all the way back to the beginning, I think to do any of that, you first have to understand that change is hard. It takes years to master being able to walk people through it, being able to walk yourself through it. Whenever we're talking about change, I think people want a how to navigate change. And I think by this point, they might be getting used to us saying, we don't really have a how to navigate change. There's not a formula for it. There are some best practices. It has to do with being a person that can navigate change. Because what we want you to understand more than anything is that you can become the kind of person, if you're not already, that can do this. Or if you're doing it already, you can get better at it. But you can't get better at it by following a formula. You can't go read a book on change and then be a change expert. It is a constant commitment to becoming the best version of yourself, and then being able to navigate into uncertainty without something to prove, but plenty to learn, so that you can create space for others to do the same. If you'll go on that journey, you will become the kind of person that can navigate change.